Shifting back to coronavirus, all the uncertainty surrounding the disease is really starting to put some people on edge. Many essential employees are becoming too scared to even show up at their jobs. Grocery store workers have held some sick-out protests calling for increased pay and greater protections. And the New York State Nurses Association is going as far as suing the state, saying they're being forced to work in, quote, war zone conditions. So is there anything that can be done both legally and mentally to help relieve some of the stress on our frontline heroes? Joining us now to weigh in, Dr. Shauna Springer, a licensed psychologist and the former suicide prevention senior advisor at the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. Dr. Springer, also the co-author of the Amazon best-selling book, Beyond the Military, A Leader's Handbook for Warrior Reintegration. Also joined by Jonathan Bell, a labor and employment attorney for founder of the Bell Law Group. Let me ask you about that, Mr. Bell. What is the scenario here for the workers? Do they have leverage here? It seems like I go to Whole Foods now, and there are reports that some of these folks are quite upset.
So the answer is they do have certain leverage, although not a lot. If they're an essential worker and they're required to be there, the employer can require them. There are some OSHA regulations that if they feel like they're in imminent or immediate danger, they could turn it down, although I don't know that we rise to that level. I do know that supermarkets are taking precautions, and the employees can get together and pressure the employer to take precautions, such as putting up some plexiglass or having a certain amount of customers in the store at one time. That seems to work fairly well. I understand that the supermarket industry is trying to work with the employees for their safety, but if it really is getting to a certain point, they still have FMLA leave. If they go to a doctor and they complain about the anxiety and stress, that's an unpaid leave they could take. And there's also different programs based on paid sick leave, whether it be federal or state. They just have to qualify. For example, if one of them has a child at home and the school's closed, they can go on extended FMLA. And the extended FMLA, at least 10 of those weeks are paid leave at 2/3 the salary. So there really are a lot of things out there. The question is which one suits them the best.
Okay.
And that's where they might need the direction of an attorney to get involved.
Yeah.
Dr. Springer, I want to ask you, a lot of workers have said that they're fearful, but some have also said that they feel less like heroes and more like hostages. Can you just explain to us on an emotional level if you think that they have legitimate concerns and your recommendations?
Yeah, so for the last 10 years, I've worked with our nation's warfighters and their families. And it's interesting that you mentioned them working in war zone type conditions. Here's what the main point is for me, is that there is a sacred trust. We protect those we send into battle. And the healthcare workers and those who work on the front lines of this crisis are the tip of the spear in the battle we're facing. And that includes the people that are on site cleaning up and anybody that's exposed to risk. Now, normally there's an initial fog of war where we try and assess the threat. So sometimes when you think about the early days of the Iraq War, people went over and the vehicles weren't up armored and they didn't have the body armor. We didn't really know what the nature of the threat was. But once we figured that out, to not act on that information and protect those we send into war violates a sacred trust. So I think what we're creating now is a conflict in people's basic priorities. We're asking them to choose between their role as healers and people that are doing essential work and the safety of those they love in their families. We're asking them to make a level of sacrifice.
So, Dr. Springer, in the short time we have left, how should we deal with this? How should they deal with that?
Well, I think we have to think beyond the limited supply of equipment. We have to think about people as a limited supply too. As a consequence of this, people are going to start rebelling and saying, why should I help somebody who's dying when I don't think they're going to make it and I could be at risk myself? And so we have to step up with some, World War II thinking in terms of let's put ourselves to work creating the protective equipment that's needed so we're not asking people to make impossible choices.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shauna Springer and Jonathan Bell. We appreciate you joining us today. Coming up, we'll have continuing coverage of the coronavirus crisis, including how do we bring sports back?
Sure.
We're all eager to see sports on the
Yes.
tube. What could that look like? We'll explore with the experts later in the show.